They say silence is golden, but in relationships, silence can also be a cage. So many women are told that no contact is the ultimate power move, the secret weapon to make him miss you, regret losing you, or come crawling back. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. No contact is often misused, misunderstood, and in many cases, completely ineffective. Why? Because it's not the silence that impacts him, it's the intention behind the silence that matters. And most of the time, that silence isn't rooted in strength, it's born out of pain. Let's be honest. When a woman goes no contact, it's rarely because she's completely healed and at peace. It's usually because she's heartbroken, hoping the silence will spark curiosity, guilt, or longing in him. But when silence is driven by desperation, it doesn't create power, it creates a vacuum. One that he learns to live without, and that communicates, I'm still emotionally invested, but I just don't know what else to do. Silence isn't power if your thoughts are still consumed by him. If you're checking his social media, rereading old messages, and counting the days since your last conversation, that's not power. That's suffering in disguise. And let's be clear, men can feel that energy. They can sense when your absence is still tied to emotional chaos. They don't feel the sting of your silence if they know you're still emotionally available behind it. The problem isn't no contact itself, it's how women use it. You go silent, but you don't evolve. You disappear, but you don't detach. And while you're waiting for him to notice your absence, he's getting used to the quiet. You think the pain of losing you is building, but in reality, you're just training him to live without your voice, your presence, your warmth. Instead of falling into that trap, shift the mindset. Don't go no contact out of weakness. Choose emotional detachment out of strength. Be present, be visible, but be unreachable. That means you don't beg, don't explain, don't try to prove your worth through silence. You show it through your energy, your growth, your discipline. That's the kind of distance that speaks volumes, not the kind that says, I'm hurting, but the kind that says, I've risen. Men don't crumble because you're silent. They crumble because your energy is no longer chasing. They crumble when they realize they've lost access to something they took for granted, and you're not asking them to find it again. They crumble when they see that the emotional tether they once relied on has been cut, not out of anger, but out of elevation. So stop thinking that silence alone is strength. Power isn't in disappearing, it's in being so secure in yourself that you no longer need to shrink, vanish, or play games. You stand tall, walk forward, and let your absence be filled with evidence of your growth. That's the kind of silence that breaks a man. Not the noise you withhold, but the peace you reclaim. Disappearing might feel like the safest choice when your heart is shattered. You think if you just vanish, cut off all contact, remove your presence, and leave him with nothing but silence, he'll come crawling back? But here's the deeper truth. Going invisible real power comes when you stay visible but detached, when you show up in your life fully, gracefully, and confidently without needing to erase yourself to prove a point. High-value detachment isn't about blocking, deleting, and pretending he doesn't exist. It's about responding with indifference rather than rage, with self-restraint rather than drama. It's about letting him see that you're still glowing, still evolving, still rising, but none of it is for him. That subtle shift in energy is what stings. When a woman can look a man in the eye, remain poised, and choose not to emotionally engage, it confuses him more than any game of silence ever could. You're not hiding, you're just unavailable to the chaos. You don't chase, you don't argue, and you don't fight to be seen. You let go in a way that makes him question everything. When you go completely no contact, he can convince himself that you're just being dramatic, that you'll come back eventually. But when you stay present, unbothered, and emotionally inaccessible, he has no idea what's going on inside you. And that's what gets to him. He sees you shining, but he can't feel your energy pulling on him anymore. That disconnection, that unexplained peace, starts to eat away at him. Instead of being a ghost, become a mystery. You don't need to be loud to make an impact. You don't even need to speak. Your calm, your control, your refusal to react, that's what keeps him up at night. He expected you to beg, to break down, to lash out. But when you do none of those things, when you simply shift your focus inward, when you rebuild without bitterness, it forces him to confront his own behavior. You don't demand an apology, you become the consequence. High-value detachment is a decision. It's the moment you stop fighting to prove your worth and start living like you already know it. You no longer need validation. You no longer seek revenge. You just move differently, with grace, with strength, and with a glow that says, I know who I am, and I don't settle for less. And that's exactly what makes a man crumble. Not the fact that you're gone, but that you're still here, just not available to him in the same way. He sees the version of you he once had access to, but now he's locked out. And no matter what he says or does, he can't find the key. Because you didn't run. You rose. There's this instinct so many women have to chase clarity, to explain, to fix what's broken, to fight for understanding. You want him to see your side, feel your pain, recognize your worth. But the more you chase, the more he retreats. The more you explain, the less he listens. That's not weakness, it's just love misdirected. Because when you're deeply emotional, it feels like the only way to make him feel what you feel is to spell it out. But men don't wake up from long texts or emotional pleas. They wake up when you stop chasing and start mirroring. What does that mean? Mirror, don't chase. It means instead of pouring all your energy into trying to make him realize something, you simply reflect back what he's giving you. If he's distant, you become centered. If he's cold, you don't try to warm him up. You keep your own warmth for yourself. If he pulls away, you don't chase. You let the distance speak for itself. You match the energy, but not from a place of spite, from a place of emotional intelligence. This is where your real power begins to show. When a woman no longer reacts from her wounds, but responds from her wisdom, a man feels it immediately. He may not say it out loud, but trust me, he feels the shift. He starts to notice that the woman who once needed his attention to breathe is now completely grounded in her own space. You're not ignoring him, and you're not playing a game. You're just not offering the access he used to take for granted. And here's the part that hits the hardest for him. It's not your silence that confuses him. It's your peace. It's the fact that you're not angry, not desperate, not falling apart. You're composed, you're focused, you're glowing up. And that shift, that transformation isn't loud. It's not meant to be. But it speaks to him in ways words never could. Because for the first time, you're no longer trying to prove you're worth staying for. You're showing it by how you carry yourself without him. So mirror him, not to play mind games, but to honor yourself. Because the more energy you waste chasing, the more you place your value in his hands. And he will never treasure what you beg him to see. But when he sees that your energy now mirrors his, and you're no longer pouring more into the connection than he is, it shakes his foundation. You are no longer an emotional safety net. You are no longer a backup plan. You are a mirror showing him exactly what he gave and exactly what he lost. That's when men start to crumble. Not when you scream or disappear, but when you calmly step back, protect your energy, and mirror what you receive. Because nothing is more haunting than a woman who once chased love, now walking in self-respect. When a relationship falls apart, the first impulse for many women is to overthink, overanalyze, and overextend themselves emotionally. You start asking what you did wrong, what you could have done differently, or what you can do now to change his mind. That mental spiral becomes a full-time job, draining your energy and stealing your peace. But here's what you need to know. The most powerful thing you can do isn't texting him, explaining yourself, or even ignoring him. It's leveling up. not to prove a point to him, but to shift the entire dynamic in your own favor. While he's waiting for your reaction, your breakdown, your emotional reach, your need for closure, you give him nothing. Nothing he can feed his ego with. No sign that you're still broken over him. No late night paragraphs. No cryptic Instagram stories begging to be decoded. Just your complete and total redirection of focus back to yourself. That is the moment everything begins to shift. Because while he's still living inside the same patterns, you've started rebuilding in silence. And that silent glow up is louder than any words you could ever speak. This isn't about revenge, it's about recovery. You stop trying to manipulate the outcome and instead you start investing in your own evolution. You hit the gym, you realign your goals, you surround yourself with people who elevate your energy instead of drain it. You take care of your skin, your body, your peace, not because you're trying to make him regret anything, but because you finally understand your worth isn't found in his validation. It's built through how you treat yourself when no one else is clapping. He thought you'd sit around and wait. He thought you'd unravel. But now he sees you becoming more of the woman he couldn't fully handle. But now he sees you becoming more of the woman he couldn't fully handle. And what stings the most isn't that you're gone. It's that you're thriving without him. Because men don't crumble from silence. They crumble when they realize the woman they once had access to is now becoming someone out of their reach. The truth is, when you take that emotional energy and pour it into yourself, something powerful happens. Your energy changes. Your posture changes. Your mindset sharpens. You no longer move like someone hoping to be chosen. You move like someone who chooses herself first. And that shift doesn't just impact you, it shakes him to his core. Because now he's the one chasing. He's the one watching. And he's the one asking how you became so untouchable. You don't have to send a message. Your glow up is the message. You don't have to say a word. Your peace speaks volume. Let him sit with the silence of your elevation. Let him watch you rise. Because nothing breaks a man's ego more than realizing he lost access to the best version of you. And that version doesn't look back. You don't need to tell him you've moved on. You don't need to announce your worth, your healing, or your transformation. Because when your actions speak, your silence becomes thunder. And this is where most women get it wrong. They try to explain their value instead of embodying it. They craft the perfect message, wait for the right moment, try to express every emotion in hopes that this time he'll finally understand. But he won't. Not through words. Because men don't feel the impact of what you say. They feel the absence of your energy when you stop offering it freely. So stop talking. Start moving. Show him through your choices that you're not the same woman who tolerated confusion, disrespect, or inconsistency. Let your new standards speak louder than any paragraph you could ever send. You don't need to block him or beg him or even respond to him. You just need to become so deeply rooted in your peace that his chaos can no longer reach you. You don't heal by making someone else understand your pain. You heal by walking forward, creating a life so full that you no longer feel the urge to explain anything. Because when a woman starts walking in her worth, she doesn't chase, she attracts. She no longer asks why he pulled away. She accepts that his distance made space for something better. And she doesn't play hard to get. She is hard to get. Because her energy is no longer available to anyone who can't handle it with care. When he sees you out there, smiling, focused, unbothered, something inside him shifts. Not because you tried to trigger it, but because you stopped trying to fix what he broke. That's the paradox. The less you do for him, the more he feels your power. When he texts and you take your time to reply, not out of spite, but because your life is full now. When he watches your story and sees light in your eyes, he didn't put there. When he realizes you no longer revolve around him, no longer orbit his moods or words or games, that's when the weight hits him. This isn't about being petty. It's about being powerful. It's about reclaiming the version of you that forgot how magnetic she is when she's not giving herself away. You don't have to delete every photo or change your number to make a statement. Just live like he's no longer the center of your emotional world. Because men feel the shift when the woman who once poured everything into them starts pouring into herself. Let your boundaries speak, let your glow speak, let your peace speak. He won't hear your silence, but he'll feel your absence. And that absence will echo louder than any goodbye ever could. Because nothing confuses a man more than a woman who once fought for him, now fighting for herself. The moment you stop trying to get answers, to get closure, to be understood, that's the moment the power dynamic shifts. For so long he was in control. You waited on his texts. You replayed his words. You clung to every little sign, hoping for a change, hoping he'd finally wake up and treat you the way you deserve. But now, that version of you is gone. Not because you hate him, not because you want revenge, but because you finally realize that you don't need his clarity to choose your peace. And that is the moment he starts to feel it. Not the pain of losing you yet, but the confusion of not knowing where he stands with you anymore. He used to read your energy like a book. He could predict your reactions, count on your forgiveness, expect your emotions to orbit his decisions, but now you've shifted. You're not cold, you're not cruel, you're just different. You're unpredictable, and that confuses him. When a man no longer knows how to trigger you, how to pull you back in, how to read your heart, that's when he loses grip on the control he once had. Because it's not that you disappeared, it's that you're still visible, but emotionally unavailable to the game. This is when he starts questioning himself. Not because you begged him to reconsider, but because you removed the emotional safety net. You're no longer checking in, no longer asking why, no longer showing up with that familiar warmth he once counted on. And that absence, that stillness, creates a void that he doesn't know how to fill. He used to be the one leaving you uncertain. Now he's the one uncertain. And that imbalance rattles him. You see, men don't crumble when you cry. They don't crumble when you plead, or even when you go silent. They crumble when you evolve to the point where their presence no longer defines your emotional state. When your glow no longer depends on their approval. When they realize you're not playing hard to get, you've simply become hard to reach. Not because you're punishing them, but because your standards have risen to a level they never thought you'd reach without them. This is the shift. You're no longer reacting to him, you're rebuilding you. And while he's stuck trying to decode your silence, wondering if you're angry, wondering if you're hurting, you're out there creating a version of yourself he can't access with the same ease anymore. He starts to feel that absence, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet moments, late at night, when no one is around. When the attention he once took for granted is no longer feeding his ego. Let him sit with that confusion. Let him wonder. Because the woman who once chased answers now walks in confidence. She doesn't ask to be chosen. She chooses herself. And that shift, subtle, powerful, permanent, is what makes him finally feel the weight of what he lost